All right, welcome Unsecurity podcast listeners. Welcome to episode 155. The date is Friday, November 12th, 2021, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Brad Nye. Brad, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm down in Kansas City getting ready to officiate one of my son's weddings tomorrow. So, other than that, just trying to keep states squared away, which, as you know, is easier said than done.
Yeah, it's a mess all over the place.
It really is, man. I was in, I don't know, the days blend together. I think it was Wednesday. I was in the Idaho Cybersecurity Task Force meeting. That was really, really good. Good people. I think sometimes we don't think outside of the box enough, and I think we get a little myopic. So it was interesting to see how, in some cases, they want to do some of the same things that other people have done, which is basically repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah.
But then in other cases, some really good discussion about, doing it better. So there's hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, what's interesting talking with the counties and states and all that, again, I think we've said this, but, they all want to do the right thing. I haven't talked to a single one of them that isn't truly vested in doing it right. Now, whether they know what to do or not, that's different, but they're looking for help.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think we certainly don't do them any favors when we make it as complicated and cumbersome as we do sometimes.
Right. Fully agree.
Keep it simple, baby. Keep it simple.
Yep.
It's your best friend.
100%.
So our topic today, we have two things I wanted to talk about in this podcast. One is our marketing folks told us to discuss, I guess they've been getting a lot of feedback on when to use or if I should use my own incident response team or just rely on, the cyber insurance incident response team. Is that going to be adequate?
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. And then I also want to talk about continuity, business continuity. I know 2020 was a hell of a year and it woke a lot of people up about, the importance of having a business continuity plan, having a disaster recovery plan and all these things. And so some of us might be lulled into this false sense of security that maybe we're out of the woods with COVID or whatever other events might be happening. But you and I are seeing things different, even personally.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
Okay, so we'll cover both of those. Let's start off with the incident response. We do boatloads and boatloads of incident response. More than, it's kind of sad on one side. It's good because you're helping them, and you're not taking advantage of them, which that happens a lot in our industry. But it's sad because people are suffering every time you have to do an incident response.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We have a couple of customers that are much more mature, and we had one where a user clicked a link, downloaded an Excel with an infected macro, and they identified and had it off the network in like 35 minutes, something like that. And that's phenomenal response. Mm-hmm. But then we have others that call in a sheer panic because everything just blew up on them and they have no idea what to do.
Right.
It's having that plan in place and being prepared is the difference between being down for, I think they said the average outage to fully recover from ransomware is about 21 days.
Well, so you just brought up a good example, 35 minutes. I read in the news yesterday, hackers, criminals, right? Mm-hmm. There's a difference. Criminals were in the Sunwater water supplier server in Queensland, Australia for 9 months.
Yeah. We see that all the time.
Right.
And this kind of leads into a nice segue. We had a customer that had gotten TrickBot and a QuackBot or something. Emotet, that's what it was. And they went to their cyber insurance. The insurance's IR team went in and cleaned that machine and said, okay, you're clean. And then that was in like, I don't remember exactly, like March, April. And then in September, they got ransomed. And they went back and they'd been in there for 6 months because that IR from the cyber insurance only looked at the one thing. They didn't look at it holistically.
Right. And so I think one of the things that people don't realize is the incident response team for the insurance provider does not work for you.
Right.
They work for the insurance company, and their motivation insurance companies are in business to make money. They're not in business to make sure you get everything you possibly need. So their motive is to, one, not pay a claim.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a way that they don't have to pay the claim, they will not pay the claim. And the second thing is get in, get out as cheaply as possible.
Yep. Yeah. And I liken it to, let's say you're facing criminal charges. Are you going to go with the $100 an hour lawyer or the $500 an hour lawyer? Right?
Well, but at least the $100 an hour lawyer works for you.
Well, but that's the kind of the thought.
I mean, would you rather pay a $100 an hour lawyer that actually works for the prosecutor?
Right. Well,
Or the
yeah.
$100 an hour that works for you?
But that's kind of the concept, right? You get what you pay for a lot of times with this, and this is not an area you should cheap out on.
No, absolutely not. I mean, when you need your incident response provider, it's usually a matter of, it's an emergency.
Right.
Right? You wouldn't call me, we could be friends too, but you wouldn't call me just to call me. You call me because something bad has happened and you need help right now. You're not sure what's going on. You're not sure what the extent of it is. You might be down. Your business might be, out of business right now.
Yeah.
It's not the time to mess around.
No. And like you said, we're here to help. That's it. We're not coming in and trying to find fault and lay blame and any of that. Those IR guys, their sole goal is to protect you and get you back functional as fast as possible while making sure that your environment is safe.
Right. And that's how security works, right? It's prevention. What I can't prevent, I better be able to detect. 9 months is not acceptable. 35 minutes is very much acceptable. The things I can't prevent, I need to detect, and then what's my response going to be? That's the third leg in this game, and it's your response, not the insurance provider's response, right? They don't have your best they act like they do, and it kind of, I get it, but they don't have your best interest at heart.
Well,
not like you do.
Right. Oh, no. And especially now that they've been just completely hammered from a profit standpoint. They're really locking down things and, making it difficult.
And the funny thing is we warned them about this. We warned them years ago when they started getting into this market that your 9-question questionnaire or 13-question questionnaire is not going to be sufficient for underwriting risk, and it's going to come back to haunt. But they were in such a in such a pace, of just getting people on the street, collecting those premiums that, and now the chickens come home to roost, and now they have to tighten up, and so you've caught a whole bunch of your customers off guard because they're used to the 9-question questionnaire, and then you come back to them and say, if you want to renew, here's your new 35-page questionnaire, and you must have these controls in place, and if you don't,
it's automatic rejection.
You ended up causing a hell of a lot more damage than you did good. And the people who suffer at the end of this are the people who were lulled into this false sense of security. How many times did you talk to people and they said, we got cyber insurance? Okay, great. You're still going to get screwed.
Yeah. Do you know what's in it? Do you know the provisions?
Well, we did a couple of incident responses this year where we could have recovered the entire. Basically, you're dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
We can rebuild a parallel environment that's clean, that's secure. Move your assets into that environment. We can do that quicker and cheaper than paying the ransom, but the insurance company wouldn't pay for it.
Right. Yeah, it was significantly less than the ransom.
and the insurance company wouldn't pay for it.
I know.
Instead, the insurance company is like, no, we cover the ransom, and we will pay the ransom. And so like, okay, well, we don't play that game. We're not going to get involved in negotiating ransoms because I won't play it.
Nope.
No way. Because you don't reward bad behavior. You just never are supposed to do that. And then what, do we get a call like a couple days later from the FBI that said you can't make the payment because they're on the OFAC list?
Yep, they got told, too bad.
So here you go. You got the insurance company that says, no, you can't do the right thing because we don't cover the right thing. You have to pay the criminal because that's what we're covering. And then you go, okay, and then they start negotiating the payments with the criminal. And then the FBI comes in and says, you can't make that payment because they're on the OFAC list.
Yep. Not a good place to be.
And that's a great example why not that I wouldn't listen to, you have to kind of play by the rules of the insurance company, but it's always good to have your own team, somebody on your side. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to be unbiased. Somebody's going to tell you the truth. Somebody's going to tell you, look, I think the things that they're doing, this is a better path for your benefit. I mean, I think you have to have both. You have to have the one with the cyber insurance company because if you want coverage, you're going to have to go through their hoops and hurdles. But, having somebody on your side, it's going to make sure you're not making bad choices.
The thing is, you don't have to use it. Like we're not a panel vendor for any of the insurance companies, but we're an approved
on purpose.
Vendor. Right. But we are an approved vendor. And the difference is, we have customers go to the insurance company and say, hey, we have a relationship with this organization. If we have an incident, we want to use them. And, Oscar and Pinky and Tyler did a ton of good work working with these different insurance companies to make sure that, we had everything in place. So, yeah, they get to pick who they were going to use. If you don't do that ahead of time, if you're not proactive, it's a pain in the butt.
Right. And the good thing with that then is, some of, or, maybe all of the expenses you pay to your own incident response team, meaning us, are covered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, we've already negotiated hourly rates and all that stuff. So there's no fighting about it when you're down.
Right. Yeah. I think the cool thing about having the right team on your side is, and certainly our approach, and I hope, many of the others in our industry, is we don't want this revenue. We would rather you not have an incident and get back on your feet and because we're in this for a long-term relationship. If you're not there anymore because you went out of business or you couldn't afford to pay, well then
we're definitely, we'll always have that emergency response. It's just an unfortunate reality. But I think their big focus and push is on those more proactive activities for incident response. Kind of that virtual IR commander, IR managed service where they're going to do the tabletop and an IR maturity assessment and work with you on a regular basis and really just become part of your team, trying to shorten that time.
Right.
That's the focus. The emergency stuff we'll take it as it comes in, but we really don't want to have to do it. But
yeah, for
it's
sure.
not going away.
And so the suggestion is, to every listener is, who is your incident response provider? Have you established a relationship with them? We're not, obviously we're biased, but you're always in good hands with us. So just getting the retainer, or, making sure that we're prepared to hit the ground running when that day does come. And if it doesn't come, then awesome. You didn't pay anything for it anyway.
Right. Yeah. Getting pre-registered, getting all that, you get, the hour call with one of the case managers and go through what you've got. They'll try and pick off some low-hanging fruit for you to fix. But yeah, they care.
And if you don't know how to do incident response, because it's not second nature for most people, right? It is for us because we've been in it so many times. But And we recognize that. So we made a whole bunch of free incident response templates, policies, plans, playbooks.
Yep.
All that stuff is on FRSecure's website, and it's not gated.
No.
You don't have to give us your name or anything. We don't care about that. What we want is for you to protect yourself. So if you don't have that stuff, go grab that stuff. Put your own name on it.
And we also have our InfoSec policies templates. Those are being pushed out as well. So we're giving away a lot of really good stuff. Use it.
Exactly. Pay us for what we should get paid for.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't pay us for things that you should already have and that are just kind of, what do you call that?
Download the IR plan template, and if you get into it and you go, I don't know what I'm doing, yeah, then give us a call. But if you know what you're doing, get started. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right. And in terms of the know what you're doing part, if you don't know what you're doing, then it's probably not the right plan. You know what I mean? It's got to be simple. It's got to be something that you do understand, that you can follow. It doesn't have, you don't want steps in your incident response plan that are there just for the sake of having steps, right? They've got to provide value to the process. And so, when you look at that plan, if there's parts of that plan that just don't seem to fit or don't make sense, just remove it from the plan.
Yeah.
It'll mature over time, right? As you continue to work these things.
And we've gotten asked questions about some of our policies and the plans, and especially the plan. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so long. Well, we have to include every, different, PCI, HIPAA, all the different things. Just pull out the stuff that you don't need. If you don't have PCI requirements, strip it out. But we needed, otherwise we're going to have 50 different templates to try and work through. Right.
Well, I know that when I was, my last real job before FRSecure, I'm thinking like, if I had like the shortest incident response plan I could ever create, I think it would be call somebody.
Yeah. Well,
call your provider, call, who's
funny.
That first call?
So two things. First, I want to say this before I forget. I think it's funny that I said it too, my last real job before FRSecure, as if this isn't a job, but it's fun. But, I was doing an IR tabletop with one of my VCSOs and gave him the scenario and said, okay, what's your first step? And he goes, I'm calling you. I was like, okay, we're done. Perfect.
Right.
Now let's walk through how you would handle it and kind of walk through it. But yeah, that's the right response. Call your partner for this.
Yeah, and have a couple of numbers. If you call pick up the first one and somebody doesn't answer, have a second one.
Yeah, and in our
things happen.
They'll do a free triage 30-minute call with you, figure it out. There's not going to be any charge for that. Go to the website. It's csert@frsecure.com. There's a form on our website. It is monitored. We have on calls, and there's a number. I don't know what it is, but those guys will get the call and we'll get something scheduled with you.
Yeah, and everybody knows. Everybody should know by now, how we work. If the rule is, if you sell something to a customer that they don't need, I run you over with my truck. So if that process, if you felt like you got taken advantage of or something like that, you pick up the phone, give me a call, send me an email. I'll follow up. But I know that these guys are like top notch. That shit's never going to happen. Excuse me, that stuff's never going to happen.
Yeah, we had one last week where they did the triage, and in the Teams chat, it's like the guy who did the triage was like, "We're not going to be able to help them. I just gave them a couple of things. They're in good shape. Made a couple of suggestions on what to look for, but they handled it. So, yeah, it happens. We will turn away business if you don't need it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think the biggest difference between having your own incident response team and having the insurance company's incident response team is you need somebody on your side, number one, and it's not either or. I think you need to have both.
Yeah. Yeah. And, question that the marketing put in there, when should you contact cyber insurance? Well, personally, I would contact your partner, not your insurance, to determine if you need to. Like,
Well, yeah. Number one, if the way to answer that is to read your policy,
yeah,
because if there's a time frame called out in there, between the time you became aware of it and the time you have to notify the insurance company, a lot of times they'll put a time limit there. And if you're outside of that time limit, that gives them potentially an out for paying your claim. So number one, read that.
yeah, know what's in there.
Uh,
Point.
what, and they'll give you suggestions in that policy, like we suggest that you call us first. Well, that's a suggestion. That's not a policy. That's not a policy disqualifier.
Right.
It's the musts that you got to pay attention to, because you want to make sure you apply by those musts. But I would say, yeah, first call, if you can, would be with your, your provider, somebody who's on your side.
Talking about business continuity, this came up, I don't remember, last week, something like that. The last couple of weeks, one of our VCSOs had a customer, and they had a shared location. The other business in that location was doing some maintenance and took out power. And they kept telling them, oh, it'll only be 4 hours. And then at 4 hours, it's only going to be 4 hours. And so they ended up being down for like a day and a half. And like, what would you do in that case? Because their thought was, well, it's only 4 hours. It's only 4 hours. It's going to take us 3.5 hours to fail over. It'll be back up. And my comment was, well, what does your BCP say? What is the maximum allowable downtime? As soon as you realize it's beyond where you've triggered it, you roll over.
Yeah.
If it's 4 hours and you roll over and are back up at 6 and they have it up at 8, so what? You saved, that's 2 hours that you're up that you wouldn't have been.
Well, that's the thing, man. I mean, so many environments have gotten so damn complex that I think most people don't know. Well, I know that most people don't know what their maximum, tolerable downtime is.
Yeah.
And
it's a nightmare to get people to do a BIA.
And I don't get why that is, because for me, I would want to know what are my most critical assets in terms of functioning the business being functional, and then making sure that I have. So let's say that my maximum tolerable downtime is 3 hours, but then when I do the analysis, I find that it's going to take us 5 hours to recover this should this happen. Well, okay, then I better put some other controls in place. I better invest in some redundancy. I better invest in something to bring that time down, my capabilities to recover down below that 3 hours.
Oh, absolutely.
And people don't do that, which is sad, because when something goes down and then the CEO and sales and everybody's clamoring at IT or clamoring at the CISO, when's it going to be up? When's it going to be up? When's it going to be up? And you say, well, I think 5 hours, 6 hours. And you're taking a shot in the dark oftentimes because you didn't go through that analysis first. And then they're like, well, we can't afford that. And I'm like, that's reality. I don't know. There's no magic wand.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I'll use it. My last real job before FRSecure, we did quarterly DR tests. We didn't restore the whole environment, but every quarter we restored a different system. So over the course of 2 years, everything had been tested. And that included every time Active Directory being restored, bare metal.
Right.
So, yeah, if something had happened, the first time we did it, it took like a day and a half to figure out and work through all the kinks. Because, right, you think you know what you're doing, but there's always like, oh, okay, I got to do things in this order. I missed this step, But by the time I left, it was like a couple hours, maybe 3 hours. Because we documented it and gotten everything in place and practiced it. It's a huge difference. Even 4 hours versus 24 hours. I mean,
yeah, I don't get it, man. And you look at, like, we've got so many examples, even outside of security. Like, take a professional athlete, for instance. One of the things that makes a professional athlete as good as they are is their obsession with the fundamentals, right? If you ever watch a football practice, what are they doing? the same drills over and over and over and over again. Why are they doing that? Well, because it becomes muscle memory, right? You become an expert at the fundamentals. And another thing that anybody who's awesome at what they do, they know themselves really well, right? They know what they need to work on. They obsess about, the things they're good at. How am I going to capitalize on my greatest assets? How am I going to minimize, my smallest assets when I get out there on the field? I mean, all those things, and they all apply to business too. Like the businesses that run themselves the best are the ones that understand themselves the best.
Oh,
so doing those analyses, whatever, asset management. I mean, it seems like it's so boring. Well, yeah, so is doing, half the drills you did when you were out in the football field or whatever else. Boring as hell. Nobody liked doing it, but it won championships. That's how you win.
100%. Yeah, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, maintain your strengths, work on your weaknesses.
Right. I mean, unless you're in business to make, we want to be, put your money where your mouth is, man. If you want to be great, if you really want to dominate, then you better understand yourself. And part of that, not all of that, but part of that is information security. Part of that is, business continuity, asset management. It's like getting out there in the field and going, doing those two-a-days that nobody liked doing. But, when it came game time, in the playoffs, you were the better team because you were better at the fundamentals.
Yep. Yeah. You can tell the people that practice versus the ones that slack.
Right.
Same thing in business, like you said.
And that's a sports analogy, but the same thing applies to everything, everywhere.
Well, musician, that's another one. What are they doing? The same thing over and over so that it becomes second nature.
Yeah. Yeah, artists, right? Artists, their first ever painting wasn't a masterpiece. No. They painted so many times and different things and analyzed it. It's like, I'm getting sort of tired of the lazy.
Well, it's, yeah.
You tell me you want to be the best business ever, but then you don't do what it takes.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, but on that continuity front, so, the last 2 years, we've really been run kind of through the ringer, everywhere, worldwide, with the pandemic and civil unrest and just, it's crazy. So businesses have definitely changed the way they do business, and they need to be more nimble than they've ever been before. And just when you think, like maybe we're out of the woods on this thing, so then you get this kind of false sense of security. Well, maybe we can put business continuity or disaster recovery more on the back burner again.
Yeah.
We seem to be out of the woods.
We're successful. We're making it work.
Right. And then, especially the last couple of weeks and prior to this podcast, COVID's still here, and it's hitting close to home. I lost a really, really, really good friend, and I'm heartbroken by it on Tuesday. Now, I had a long time to mourn because he was in the hospital in the ICU since October 9th. So,
wow.
But took him, and he was a healthy guy. He wasn't he wasn't in a high risk category in terms of, having pre-existing conditions or anything like that. I don't think he was vaccinated, but, I'm not going to get into the political crap about that. And now, you told me before you got on the phone or before we got here that, it's hitting your kids' schools and your home.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We talked about it. My wife's a school nurse, and her school had something like 20 new cases this week. They actually closed Thursday and today, and we're hoping to get students back in next Tuesday. But I found out just before this, they're closed through at least next Friday.
Right.
And she tested positive. She went in yesterday, got tested, and came back and got the results. And she tested positive. She's fully vaccinated. She wore an N95 mask, but not all the students did. So, now my son gets to quarantine for 14 days and test negative. But,
right.
All of us that could get vaccinated are, so hopefully, she's got a little bit of a cough, some sniffles.
Well, the thing that sucks is this has become such a politicized thing. Right. I don't really give two craps about the politics. I'm really focused on, the things I can control, right? Myself, my family, my business, trying to plan those things. So if we thought we were out of the woods with COVID and we're not, I mean, these things just don't go away, right? So
No.
your business continuity is still, if not more important today than it was, 2 years ago.
Well, think about all the kids that are now at home with parents that aren't going to be able to work because they're going to have to be looking after kids for at least a week, unexpectedly.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, the mental health aspects of it too, which I don't think any of us have fully realized yet. I thought I could think clearer prior to COVID than I can today, because there's just so many other things going on, so many distractions, so many especially in your house, man. I mean, it seems like you get going and that's all, it's like, bam, it's like, damn it. And then you got to shift over again and bam. I mean,
it's been an eventful year.
Yeah. Well, I think it has been for all of us. And so I think the word of advice on this piece, and this is really what I want to stress in this podcast, was keep at it with your disaster recovery plans. If you don't need them right now, you're going to need them. The math supports it. So, integrate it into your business too. I mean, that's another thing we see all the time is people build these plans and then put it on the shelf, and they don't, they figure they're not going to use it until the bad thing happens. But this needs to be tied in operationally with change control, with other parts of your business, so that it stays up to date. You don't want to pull out that plan when the bad thing happens and be like, we can't do any of this.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, well.
All right, man. Any shout outs?
Darn it, I had one. Oh my gosh. I thought about this yesterday and I was like, I got to remember to do this. I don't know. I can't remember. I had a really good one.
Well, I'll start. I'll start with mine and then see if you have one. I'm going to give a shout out to, obviously, our military. This week was the 246th birthday of our beloved United States Marine Corps. I grew up in that world, man, and my God, they're just amazing people, man. We wouldn't be here without the Corps, man, and I'm just so grateful. And then Veterans Day, right? All of our veterans across all services, they don't get paid a lot. They're not in it for the money. They're in it because they love their country, and we'd be screwed without them. So. Big shout out to that.
You know what? I'll just mimic that one, and it's because I can't remember. Just knowing what my wife has gone through the last week, all the school nurses out there, and what they're having to put up with, not just with sick kids and contact tracing, but then the staff that's panicked and trying to,
and parents.
Yeah, and the parents, and it was eye opening for me. She was coming home just completely wiped out. Just because they were so busy with all this stuff. So, shout out to nurses and veterans. There we go.
Amen, brother. All right. Well, that's a wrap. We'll see you next week for episode 156.
Yeah. Wow.
Be safe.